Welcome back to the Comp Closet podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Sarah, and today we are joined by the first ever 45 plus FMG Bikini Pro World Champion, Marijana Ryding. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on again.
No worries. I'm super excited. And as we were just chatting about before we jumped on the podcast, like we had you on a podcast in April last year. So crazy to think about everything that you've achieved since then. When you think back to where you were in April last year, when we last spoke, mentally, physically, emotionally, what is the first word that comes to your mind?
First word would be accomplished. I just feel accomplished, like not by the end result, but just that I did it. I made it. I got through it. I did 3 shows. 3.
Crazy. And was that the goal? Was Worlds the end goal?
So my goal originally was to do Worlds. And then when it came out, we had to qualify to do a show. I waited to see, when they release, I forget which show it was. It was a Gold Coast show and they did the big dramatic, like these are the shows that are coming up. And then as soon as I saw Thailand, I was like, yep, that's the one. I've never been to Thailand, so I really wanted to do that one. And then it came out with New Zealand and that was in between. So I thought, well, I've had 3 kids. I might as well do 3 shows. If I can do that, I can do that. So I feel accomplished, I guess, accomplished that I made it, not even just the result. The result is a bonus on top.
Yes, absolutely. And then obviously you were in that big build phase when we last spoke, and that was post 3 kids. Did you have any idea kind of what that next season would bring? I know you had the goals of those shows, but did you have any idea of like how you would do or anything?
Absolutely not. Like when I went into my builds, I wasn't afraid to get big. Like I know most people are a bit afraid of the build. I have a lot of clients who say, I can only do it for 12 weeks or anything like that. But because I had 3 kids in such a short period of time of 4 years and I was breastfeeding in between all of them. So for 5 years, I was a big girl. So I was 20 kilos over my usual weight. So I wasn't afraid when my coach said, let's get into a build. Let's make this worth it. So I ate all the food. I trained so hard and I wasn't sure of what my body was going to look like because I was just big for so long. And it wasn't until I got into my cut, I realized, I've built some pretty good glutes. I've built some hamstrings. And then I didn't realize, like my whole journey, I thought I was just doing bikini. And I didn't realize I'd actually grown into another category as well, which was, exciting. So I had no idea.
Yes, incredible. And you did bikini and bikini athletic, right?
Yeah. I just did bikini for Thailand. And then it wasn't until I got to the show that I realized what my physique looked like standing next to the other girls that I looked at myself and thought I maybe should have registered for bikini athletic as well because I could see how I looked different. And then it wasn't until I got that judge's feedback that said to dabble into that basically. So I did that for New Zealand. And then Worlds, I did both as well. I know most people shouldn't do both categories. I tell my clients all the time, you are never 2 categories, but I felt I had to because I sat in the grey area of both.
Yeah.
Didn't know where I was going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And what did it feel like returning to the pro stage as a mum of 3?
It was the best feeling in the world. Like I truly felt like Marijana again. I was in the trenches of motherhood for 6 years and everything I did was for my kids. Like literally everything. I gave up on myself for 6 years and to go on stage and just hear my name, like I just get so emotional even just talking about it because it's just a feeling you don't have when you're just in that motherhood trenches for such a long time. And then to do something for myself was just incredible. It was the best feeling.
And how did it feel in that moment to win and hear your name as the world champion?
Did you see my reaction?
I did. I was watching.
I don't think anyone's ever had a reaction like that. It took a while to process. See, and I still honestly thought Danny was going to win. And in my head, that was what was going to happen. And then when they called my number, the only thing when they called her number, the only thing that went through my head was, I felt, I wanted Danny to win. And I felt bad for Danny. And it wasn't until she turned around to me and said, oh, babe, you've won, that it sort of started registering. And then you can see me sort of pacing and processing my thoughts. And then when Stephanie Ayala had come forward to me, I remember asking her and looking her dead in the eye and saying, is this real? And she's like, yes, babe, this is real. And that's when I started jumping around like a lunatic. It wasn't just that. It was like, it wasn't the win itself. It was like all this emotion that I'd had for so long was all built in me. And that was the explosion. It was It was years of that coming out, not just, hey, you've won. I was just celebrating my whole journey, not just the win itself.
Yes, it was honestly such a special moment, and, like, it was an absolute battle up there. You both looked so incredible, but, like, no one really knows how much work you've put in behind the scenes. Obviously, you share some of it on social media, and some people see that element of it, but the amount of work that you would have put in behind the scenes with 3 kids and, like, all those years of growth as well, even before you had the kids, like, all that stage experience, the posing, like, everything just built up to that moment, so it
It
was
did.
really cool to see.
It really felt like it was such a build up because it was such a long journey for me.
Yeah.
When I told people I wanted to compete in 2025, I said that in 2023.
Yeah,
No, like it was so long.
incredible. And then how would you personally define a win now? Like, has that changed to what it previously was for you?
A win before for me used to be the end result. A win now would be making the journey.
Yeah, yeah.
So the journey itself has been a win. Getting through that has been a win. Making it through maybe just one day, if it's a hard day, that's a win, or having a fantastic week, that's a win. Not giving up is a win, not just necessarily the end result of winning a crown.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's something you wish more people understood about competing at this level while also living a full life with, business, work, kids, relationships?
Just that when you follow people on Instagram that compete, if they don't have the same life as you, you're not going to have the same journey. So when you see people get up in the morning and meditate, journal, watch the sunrise with a nice hot coffee, or have a hot girl summer walk on a coastal walk, though that might not necessarily be your journey. It doesn't mean that you won't get the same result. It just doesn't mean that you'll take the same steps to get there. It's going to be hard. There's going to be days where you feel like, how am I ever going to get through this? How am I going to do this? How am I going to run a business, have kids, and now invent time to do a prep for myself? But it can be done. It absolutely can be done. No day is going to be the same. You might fall out of your routine, but that's okay. You're just going to have a different journey to get there. That doesn't mean one person's journey is easier than the others. Everyone's got a different measurement of what is hard, but it's just going to be different. And that's okay.
Yeah, I think in saying that as well, like, if you do have the freedom and the flexibility, with no kids and with a flexible job and all those things, like, be grateful for it, while
Oh,
you have it. Like, I'm so inspired by, you and other mums who are competing and prepping with kids. I think it's absolutely incredible, but it also gives me more gratitude for having that flexibility right now. And I think, like, more people need to realize that they have that flexibility and be grateful for it and make the most of it as well. But at the same time, like, it's so incredible seeing you prep with kids, and it's just so inspiring as well. Was there a point in that season where you felt like giving up, like, during prep?
I believe that the point of giving up and the point of failure is where your success comes from. So whenever I felt like I can't do this, this is where I'm going to fail, this is where I'm going to let go, those were the points in time that I pushed myself even harder because I knew this is where people give up. So this is where I'm going to be successful. So I'm going to push through this. My family sacrificed so much for me to do this. And that was a driving factor as well, knowing, I was missing out on time with my kids. They were missing out on time with me. I was asking my husband to do extra on top of what he already does. So I could do this. So that was also part of what drove me, and it made me not want to give up. So I can't say I ever truly felt like this is the end. I am giving up right now, because I had so many other things that drove me through those moments. And that's where I believe that success comes from.
Yes, absolutely. It's just showing up on those hard days, or even if it's, 10 minutes of hard stuff that you have to push
Yeah.
through, it's just pushing through that, right?
Pushing through it, just pushing. And then once you get to the other side, gosh, it is so, and that's another little win, when we talked about where are the wins, that's a win. If you can push through that, that's absolutely a win.
Yes, so true. And do you feel extra pressure stepping on stage as a posing coach?
Yes. It's funny, and I'm sure no one has that pressure on me other than it's my own pressure. Do you know what I mean? I don't think anyone has actually pressured me. It's an internal thing because this is what I do for a living. And it's also, I understand what type of posing I do. And it isn't necessarily there's so many different types of posing you can teach. You can teach someone how to do a dance posing. You can teach someone technique. You can teach someone a bit more reserved posing. And it was just understanding that I have my own style. I really loved all my judges' feedback because from all 3 shows, I was told that I had very elegant and classy posing, which I loved because I thought, oh, how great's that? That's a great
Yeah.
compliment. So that's what I performed on stage, and that's what I felt I had to live up to, each time I got feedback, and I had to keep delivering that. So it was just an internal pressure. I don't think anyone else was expecting, anything different from me.
Yeah, 100%. I would completely agree with the judges as well. You were so beautiful and elegant on stage. Like, elegant is such a good way to describe it. Like, you just move so gracefully, but then you're hitting those poses so well. So if anyone hasn't watched your stage footage or anything yet, they have to go and check it out. I will link your socials down below so that people can go and have a look.
Thank you.
How did you approach your build and prep phase differently this time compared to previous preps and builds?
I gave it everything I got. Nothing, like every day I wrote a plan, and 90% of the time it didn't happen because I have kids, and kids don't care you're in prep. They don't even know what it is. They just know mummy's going to the gym. And, it was really hard because some nights, so my husband will come home from work and I'll go to the gym, and my daughter or my little one who's 2 years old would cry because they didn't want me to go to the gym, and that was so hard. Or on the weekends when everyone was going to the park or going to get Yochi, and they'd drop me off at the gym and then they'd cry in the pram. So that was probably the hardest bits, but I worked even harder than ever because I knew that's what I was missing. They were missing that for me. So I worked harder than ever. I did everything my coach asked me to do. I pushed myself to the point of wanting to throw up. I did cardio while crying on the Stairmaster and still pushing through. And I think that's the different level I gave it this time compared to last time. Last time I competed, I didn't have kids. I had what I'd now call an abundance of time. And, and I just did what I could. And if I couldn't, I just thought, oh, I'll just pick up on that tomorrow. I don't have tomorrow because I don't know what tomorrow is going to be. So I worked super hard this time. And yeah, I feel good for it. No regrets.
And imagine how proud your kid's gonna be when they get a little bit older and they actually understand, like, why you're doing all of those things, you know?
Yeah, it's really nice even now seeing them understand certain things, and I use the terminology at home as well. So, I'll pick them up from daycare and they would tell me what they've had for lunch, but they'll break it down with, Mum, do you want to know what protein I had today? And so, it's kind of nice. And when they play like games in the lounge room, they will pretend to pack a bag and then go to the door and say, okay, bye, mummy, I'm going to gym. I'm going to gym. They don't know what the gym is. So it's kind of nice seeing them do all those little things as well.
Yes, I think, like, the influence of all these habits that they're seeing and that, seeing that as normal as they grow up is gonna be so, so powerful for them later in life.
And also making sure they don't see it in a negative way as well. So they
Yeah.
don't watch me stand on the scale. I don't let them see me stand on a scale because I don't want them to measure themselves by weight. I'm doing it now because I'm doing a bodybuilding competition. You know, I don't stand in front of the mirror and judge my physique in any sort of negative way in front of them because I don't want them to look at themselves that way. I'm doing it now because I'm in a bodybuilding competition. I understand the mentality that is needed and what's behind it, but they don't. They're all under 6 years old. I also made sure that I didn't show any of that side of it as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And would you say that your relationship with your body has changed again since stepping off stage after being through so many phases?
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny, I actually love my body now after comp than I did during comp. The whole time during comp, I would look at my stomach. So I've had, 3 kids, all of them ginormous, 4 kilo children, like, believe it or not. I'm 5'4" and I gave birth to 4 kilo children. And I have a lot of stretching, wrinkles. I even got surgery on my stomach to help me for comp, just with like skin tightening and the whole thing. And so I was constantly staring at my stomach and judging it. Every stage photo I got back, the first thing I looked at was my stomach. And now that I'm out of it, 2 weeks post comp, I look at my stomach and I love it. It's just a funny thing that happens, I guess. We all have these little mental things, but I think we all focus on what we're most insecure about. And for me, it was my stomach. But now I have such a great relationship with my body because it has been through everything.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's funny, like everyone has those insecurities that they fixate on, but like obviously your stomach is not an issue because you won a world championship. So,
Yeah.
like, what advice would you give to someone who is struggling with insecurities and particularly getting on stage with insecurities?
They're our insecurities. They may not be the judges and they may not be what they focus on. Find what is your strength and work with those and accept what our bodies are. I accept what my body looked like, and I never felt like people were going to judge me on my stomach in a negative way because I'd given birth to 3 babies. I stood next to girls on stage that hadn't had any at all, and I was able to be in the same caliber as them. So I focused on what my strengths were, and I just let that moment be, what is my negative? That's my negative. That's not something that the judges are focusing on. That's not anything that anyone else is focusing on other than myself.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And now, post comp, what does a normal routine look like for you?
You know what? It's been fantastic because I found myself again. I found Mariana, not just mum. So and I remember messaging this to my best friend Beck, who owns Australian Posing School. And I remember I was really down after the show that I was scared that I was going to fall back in the old trap of wearing the same clothes every day, the mum clothes, the mum bun, not putting on any makeup. Or sometimes I go through a week without deodorant. Like that's just mum life. It is what it is, You can do 24 hours without showering and no one's going to notice because you don't see anyone. And I was so scared that I was going to fall back into that. And she wrote me this really beautiful message that I've saved on my phone and I read it all the time, that I'm no longer that person. So I've kept a lot of the things that I was doing through prep. Now I'm, obviously still going to the gym, I'm still doing my cardio, I'm still meal prepping, but I'm not doing it with that intensity, but the habits are there and I've kept those habits. And I think that's been really important for me.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like keeping those habits post show is so important
Mm.
for anyone. And like, yeah, in particular for you as a mum, but yeah, for anyone to just keep those habits post show so that mentally, like, you're not going from, chasing this goal to just having everything thrown out the window.
Yeah. And I think that's where people also, they fall out of it as well. I think really like, even say a reverse diet, you still have to be doing this stuff, and it can lead into anything else. It's just really good life habits to have. And I've loved having them back. I used to have them before kids. And such a long time they were gone. There's no reason why I shouldn't continue to have those habits just because I'm not competing at this point in time.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking about posing and coaching as well, how do you feel like competing and getting on stage again has continued to shape your posing coaching approach? Like, has that changed at all?
I think every year I change the way I teach. Every year there's always room to grow. There's always things to learn from, and every individual and every athlete I've had has been different. And I believe I've learned something new from every single athlete I've had, a different way to teach people. But I've now learned of the things that I needed, as a competitor myself, the things that resonated with me. And I believe I've taken those things on and brought them on to clients now, so it's been good. It was always good teaching and I love being a teacher. I've been a teacher longer than I've, been an athlete, but it's now nice that I've been able to take things that I've personally learned and, put that forward with my teaching.
Yes, I love that. And what advice do you have for competitors, especially mums or over 40 athletes?
It can be done. The goal doesn't have to be so big at first. To start with something small, like I'm going to start going to the gym, or I'm going to start doing that cardio, or I'm going to invest in a better coach, or, I'm going to just start doing one session of posing to see how I feel about doing this. The goal itself doesn't have to be the huge one at first. You start small and you build from there, but it can be done. I know it's really hard to feel like as a mother that I can't get out of this. I'm stuck. There's no way I can invent time to fit in cardio, gym, and posing every day. But you can. You can absolutely. You just got to start small and stop looking at the bigger side of things and think you've got to reach this huge goal. Start with a small one and then build from there, but it can be done. And it feels amazing when you do.
Yes, and speaking of time as well, I think that's such an important part.
Mm.
How did you fit everything in? Like,
I,
what's the secret?
as I told everyone, I truly invented time. Like I absolutely felt like like every day I was proud of myself. I truly felt like I was inventing this time, like, because I'm so busy with the kids and I work and I run the whole house and everything. And I just thought, God, how am I going to do this? But I made it work. I mean, I did my cardio with my kids in the lounge room on the days that I was a stay at home mum. Yes, I had 1 hour of cardio to do, and it took me 2.5 hours to do it because I'd had to break it up into these small pieces, but I did it. I missed out on a lot of family things to fit in the time to do gym sessions. Posing sometimes was at 10 p.m. at night. And I know when people say, like, especially when coaches say, rest is important and, you need to get a full 8 hours sleep. So impossible for a parent. Like, and that's got nothing to do with what I choose to do in my time when the kids are asleep. That has just got to do with my kids. All my kids wake up during the night. To get a solid full night's sleep I can count on one hand how many times that has happened in a year. So you just make it work. You just make it work. And I did, and I made it work. But you just got to try every day to find a different way. If something doesn't work, that's cool. Tomorrow's a new day. Let's try it then. Let's not beat ourselves up over it. We have another opportunity tomorrow to make it work. And, it's been really great having my husband as well, who's worked with me on this as well. It was a family decision for me to compete. I couldn't do this by myself. So it's been, having his support has been absolutely paramount to the success of all of this.
Yes, what a legend. And I love that advice as well. I think that is super, super insightful for anyone listening to this who feels like they don't have time because you obviously created it and made it work.
I tried. We all just got to try.
Yeah. So what's next for you?
I love this because I really want to compete again. Like I thought I will come out of retirement. I'm going to do one show. That changed to two, then it changed to three. And then I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I truly love bodybuilding, not just like, the whole competing thing. I truly have a love for this sport and changing my physique. And I don't want to stay in the same category. I feel like I want to grow. I love the build phase. So I think I'm going into a massive build and then I'll see what I look like to see what I'm going to do. But I will be on stage again, just not next.
Yeah, so exciting. And I feel like there's more and more shows coming out every year. So you'll definitely be able to string a few together and hopefully go on a family holiday or something.
No kids on picnic. No family holiday. No.
Yeah.
I have learned you do not, and I've never personally done it, but from what I've heard from a lot of clients, we do not bring our kids to peak week.
So fair. And do you feel like you're still chasing something or has that shifted into something a little bit more internal when it comes to competing?
I think chasing something like something external, no. And I've never felt like I was ever chasing something external. I really have an inward pull and I really always feel like I want to be better. I just live by that no matter what I've been doing. Even before I was a posing coach and I worked in corporate, that's just the way my brain works. We're just humans. We should always be pushing ourselves. We can't be so arrogant to believe that this is the pinnacle of us, so I just keep pushing. Yeah. That's
Yeah, love that. And if you could teach your kids one thing from this journey, what would it be?
I would love to say, you can do anything that you put your mind to, but I think that'd just sound generic. But what I truly feel I'd love to teach my kids out of this is respect, not just respect for our bodies, but respect for each other. Me competing was a family decision. Without my husband's respect for what I choose to do in my life, this wouldn't happen. We are two very different people. We have very different careers. He runs his own business, which is nothing to do with bodybuilding at all, but he really respects what I choose to do. And I truly respect his as well. So with having that, we support each other and this will not work without support, sacrifices, working as a team, and even having that with my kids as well. For them, I want them to grow up, there's three of them, to respect that although they're brothers and sisters, they're not going to have the same passions and the same goals, but they should always respect each other's and push each other and help each other to strive and get to those goals and support each other and cheer each other on. So, I really hope that my kids later on in life not just look at it like, wow, look what mum did, but look at what had to happen for mum to do this, have that love and respect for their dad and their mum and their siblings in life.
Yes, I think that's so special and so powerful. They're both so lucky to have you
Yeah,
guys and, such a good influence growing up as well.
yeah.
For anyone who wants to learn from you or sign up for posing coaching or just follow your next chapter, where can they find you?
Okay, so for all my posing, it is Posing by Mariana on Instagram. So I work at Australian Posing School. So I do one-on-one sessions in person, online. I also run FMG group classes on the weekends. And we've actually just launched our new athlete program for 2026. So, which is really exciting because it's a all-in-one thing of private classes, group classes, posing mobility, the community with APS and all the competitors. So that's just started now, applications for 2026. And for my personal journey, it's Marijana.Ryding, and it is a mixture of the trenches of motherhood. It's my journey to stage and just a little bit of life in between.
Amazing. I'll link all of those down below so anyone listening can go and find that. Thank you so much for your time and coming on the podcast again to
Thank
share your story. I'll also link our previous podcast episode below. If anyone hasn't listened to that, they can go back and listen. It'll be quite cool to
you.
see how far you've come in such a relatively short space of time. So thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
Amazing. And thank you to our listeners as well. If you could rate this podcast on whatever platform you're listening to it on and give us a follow, it really does help us to grow. And also share this episode to your stories. Tag Mariana, tag the Comp Closet. We'd love to see what you're up to while you're listening. Thanks so much.
Thank you.